How can a single careless confession turn my world upside down? What starts as me coming clean about a one-night mistake becomes the day my husband shows he's been quietly gathering every receipt behind my back. Can I still call him the villain when he's the one calmly handing me the papers while everyone's watching? I confessed like I was doing the right thing, expecting tears and maybe forgiveness. He didn't even flinch. He just said he'd known for a long time. That calmness was the scariest part, because it meant he'd already grieved me in silence. After that, every door started closing, and I couldn't talk my way back in. The words tumbled out of my mouth like water from a broken dam. I'd practiced this moment in the mirror for weeks, rehearsing the perfect combination of remorse and justification. But sitting across from Caleb at our kitchen table, watching him methodically eat his Tuesday night pasta, I realized nothing could have prepared me for this. "I need to tell you something," I began, my voice trembling with what I convinced myself was courage. "About 3 weeks ago, at the Eclipse nightclub after the company party, something happened." Caleb didn't look up from his plate. He twirled another forkful of spaghetti with the same mechanical precision he brought to everything else in his life. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire, and I felt compelled to fill it. "I was drunk, and you weren't there, and I was feeling so alone lately, Caleb. You work all the time, and when you're home, you barely look at me. I felt invisible." The words came faster now, spilling over each other in my rush to explain, to make him understand. "There was this guy, Theo Mendez. He's an events promoter, and he was so charming and funny, and he actually listened to me." Still nothing. Caleb continued eating, as if I were discussing the weather. "We danced, and then we went back to his place, and it just happened. It was a mistake, Caleb, a stupid, meaningless mistake that I regret every single day." I leaned forward, reaching for his hand. "But I'm telling you because I love you, because our marriage deserves honesty. I could have hidden it forever, but that wouldn't be fair to either of us." Finally, Caleb set down his fork. He looked at me with those pale blue eyes that had once made my heart race, and I saw something in them that chilled me to the bone. Not anger, not hurt, just a terrible, quiet knowledge. "I know," he said simply. The two words hit me like a physical blow. "What do you mean, you know?" "I mean, I've known for 3 weeks, Tilly. I've known since the night it happened." My mouth went dry. "How could you possibly? You posted Instagram stories from the club. You were all over Theo in the background of other people's photos. Someone sent me a video of you two dancing." His voice remained maddeningly calm. "You came home at 4 in the morning with his cologne on your dress and makeup smeared all over your face. You showered immediately, which you never do when you're drunk. You threw your underwear directly into the washing machine instead of the hamper." Each observation felt like a nail in my coffin. I stared at him, struggling to process this information. "If you knew, why didn't you say anything?" "Because I wanted to see what you would do, whether you would tell me the truth or let me live a lie." He picked up his fork again. "Now I know." "But I did tell you the truth. I'm telling you right now." 3 weeks later, Tilly, after I already had all the evidence I needed. The word evidence sent a chill down my spine. "Evidence? What are you talking about?" Caleb stood up, his plate still half full. "I'm going to finish some work in my office. We can talk more tomorrow when you've had time to think about what you really want to say." He walked away, leaving me sitting alone at the kitchen table, my confession hanging in the air like smoke. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. I was supposed to be the brave one, the honest one. He was supposed to be grateful that I'd chosen truth over deception. Instead, I felt like I'd walked into a trap of my own making. That night, I lay awake listening to Caleb move around the apartment. I heard drawers opening and closing, the soft whir of the printer, the click of file cabinets being locked. When I finally crept to his office door, I found it closed with a new deadbolt I'd never seen before. The next morning, Caleb was gone before I woke up. No note, no text, nothing but the lingering scent of his cologne and a coffee cup in the sink. I sat at my desk at Morrison Logistics, staring at my computer screen, trying to make sense of what had happened. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister Lydia. "How did it go last night? Are you okay?" I'd called her the day before, working up the courage for my confession. She'd been supportive but cautious, warning me to be prepared for any reaction. "He already knew," I typed back. "Can you believe that? He's known for weeks and said nothing. What kind of person does that?" "Oh, honey, that must have been shocking. How are you feeling?" I stared at her question, realizing I didn't know how to answer it. How was I feeling? Exposed, certainly. Confused, but also, strangely, vindicated. Caleb's silence proved what I'd suspected all along. He didn't really care about me. A man who loved his wife would have confronted her immediately, would have fought for their marriage. His calculated patience felt like evidence of his emotional distance. "I'm actually relieved," I typed. "At least now I know where we stand. He's been playing games instead of being honest with me." "Tilly, maybe he was just processing. Finding out about an affair is devastating. People handle it differently." But I was already crafting a different narrative in my mind. By the time I got to the office coffee machine, I'd refined my story. When my coworker Nate asked why I looked tired, I found myself saying, "Caleb and I had a big talk last night. Turns out he's been spying on me for weeks, collecting information like I'm some kind of criminal instead of his wife." "Spying on you? That's messed up." "Right. I tried to be honest with him about a mistake I made, and it turns out he already knew and was just watching me squirm. It's like he wanted to catch me in a lie." Nate shook his head sympathetically. "Sounds like he's got control issues. You deserve better than that." The validation felt like a warm blanket. By lunch, I'd shared my story with 3 more colleagues, each time refining the details, each time casting Caleb as the calculating villain, and myself as the victim of his emotional manipulation. "You were brave to tell him the truth," said Jennifer from accounting. "Most people would have just hidden it forever." That's what I thought too, but apparently, honesty isn't valued in my marriage. I posted a vague status on Facebook. Sometimes the hardest thing about telling the truth is discovering that the other person was never really listening anyway. Feeling grateful for friends who actually care about honesty and communication. Authenticity, learn growth, learn moving forward. The likes and supportive comments started rolling in immediately. Sarah from college. "You're so strong, girl." My cousin Maria. "Their loss if they can't handle your truth." Even Theo liked the post, which gave me a little thrill. But when I got home that evening, I found Caleb in the living room with a manila folder and a digital camera, methodically photographing items throughout our apartment. Each piece of furniture, each appliance, each piece of artwork had a small numbered sticker attached to it. "What are you doing?" I asked, though something in my stomach already knew. "Documenting our shared assets," he said without looking up, "for the division of property." "Division of property? Caleb, we had one conversation. Don't you think you're being a little dramatic?" He lowered the camera and looked at me directly. "Tilly, you cheated on me, lied to me for 3 weeks, and then tried to make me grateful for a confession you only made because you felt guilty. What exactly did you think was going to happen?" "I thought we would talk about it like adults. I thought maybe we could work on our problems instead of you jumping straight to divorce." "What problems exactly?" The question caught me off guard. "You know what problems. You work constantly. You never want to go out. You haven't touched me in months. I felt like I was married to a stranger." "So you decided to sleep with someone else." "It wasn't a decision, Caleb. It just happened. And I told you about it because I wanted to fix things between us." "No, Tilly. You told me because you got caught. Because you knew I'd seen the photos and the videos, and you were trying to get ahead of the story." I felt my face flush. "That's not true." "Isn't it?" He held up his phone, showing me a screenshot of my Instagram story from that night. me laughing with Theo's arm around my waist, clearly intoxicated and clearly intimate. This was posted at 11:47 p.m. You didn't leave the club until after 2 a.m. You knew this was public, Tilly. You knew people would see it. Looking at the photo now, with Caleb's cold analysis, I felt a wave of shame. But I pushed it down, replacing it with anger. So you've been building a case against me, collecting evidence like I'm some kind of criminal. I've been protecting myself. There's a difference. From what? From your own wife? From someone who clearly has no respect for our marriage or our vows. The words stung because they felt true, but I couldn't admit that. Instead, I doubled down. You know what, Caleb? Maybe this is exactly what we needed. Maybe now we can both stop pretending this marriage was working. He nodded slowly. Maybe you're right. That night, he slept in the guest room. I lay in our bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. But every time I started to feel guilty, I reminded myself of his coldness, his calculated response, his refusal to fight for us. What kind of husband gives up that easily? The weekend brought a company happy hour at Eclipse, the same club where everything had started. I almost didn't go, but Nate convinced me that hiding would only make things worse. You need to show people you're not ashamed, he said. You told the truth, and that's more than most people would do. Hold your head high. So I went. I wore my favorite black dress and spent extra time on my makeup. If people were going to look at me, I wanted them to see someone confident and unapologetic. Theo was there, as I'd hoped he would be. He approached me at the bar with that same charming smile that had gotten me into trouble in the first place. Hey, beautiful, how are you holding up? Better than expected, actually. Turns out my husband is more interested in playing detective than fighting for our marriage. His loss, Theo said, moving closer. You deserve someone who appreciates what they have. We danced again, and I let myself get lost in the music and the attention. When Theo's hands found my waist, when he whispered compliments in my ear, I felt alive in a way I hadn't in months. This was what I'd been missing. Passion, excitement, someone who actually wanted to be with me. I posted photos throughout the night. Me laughing with friends, me dancing, me living my best life. The captions were carefully crafted. Grateful for friends who remind you of your worth, and dancing through the storms, and authenticity is magnetic. The responses were overwhelmingly positive. Old friends from college, co-workers, even some family members liked and commented with supportive messages. I felt vindicated, surrounded by people who understood that I deserved happiness. But Monday morning brought a different reality. I was called into HR first thing. Janet Morrison, the director, sat across from me with a stern expression and a manila folder that looked ominously familiar. Tilly, we need to discuss your recent social media activity. My stomach dropped. My social media? What about it? Several employees have expressed concerns about posts that might reflect poorly on the company. Additionally, we've received complaints about inappropriate conduct at company-sponsored events. She opened the folder and slid a printed screenshot across the desk. It was the photo of me and Theo from Saturday night, but someone had circled us in red ink and written "cheater" across the bottom. This was posted anonymously to the company Facebook page, Janet continued, along with several others and a detailed timeline of your situation. I stared at the photos, feeling my face burn with humiliation. Someone had been watching me, documenting everything, turning my moment of freedom into evidence against me. I don't understand. My personal life has nothing to do with my job performance. Normally, I would agree. However, when personal conduct becomes public knowledge and affects workplace dynamics, it becomes a company concern. Several employees have complained about feeling uncomfortable around you, and there are concerns about your judgment and professionalism. That's ridiculous. I've never done anything inappropriate at work. The photos suggest otherwise. This one was taken at a company event, and according to the timestamp, it was during work hours. She showed me another photo, me and Theo at the office holiday party 3 months ago. We were just talking, but the way he was leaning in, the way I was smiling up at him, it looked intimate, flirtatious. "I want to be clear," Janet said. "We're not terminating your employment at this time, but we are issuing a formal warning about maintaining appropriate boundaries between your personal and professional life. Any further incidents will result in disciplinary action." I walked back to my desk in a daze. How had things escalated so quickly? Saturday night, I'd felt supported and vindicated. Now I was being treated like a pariah. Nate was waiting by my cubicle with an uncomfortable expression. "Hey, Tilly, listen, I heard about the HR thing. That sucks." "It's insane, Nate. Someone is literally stalking me, taking photos and spreading rumors, and I'm the one getting in trouble." He shifted uncomfortably. "Look, I think you're great, and you know I support you, but maybe you should lay low for a while. People are talking, and it's getting pretty intense." "What kind of things are people saying?" "Just, wondering about your judgment, whether you can be trusted, that kind of thing." The betrayal hit me like a slap. "I thought you said I was brave for telling the truth." You are, but maybe the truth doesn't need to be quite so public. Like, posting photos with the guy you cheated with might not be sending the right message." "I'm not hiding in shame, Nate. I made a mistake. I was honest about it, and now I'm moving on with my life. If people can't handle that, it's their problem." But even as I said the words, I could see the doubt in his eyes. By the end of the day, I noticed that conversation stopped when I walked by, that people avoided eye contact in the break room, that my usual lunch group had somehow forgotten to invite me. When I got home, I found Caleb in the kitchen, calmly eating dinner alone. There was no plate set for me. "How was your day?" he asked without looking up. "Terrible, actually. Someone's been stalking me, taking photos and sending them to my work. I got called into HR because of anonymous complaints." "That's unfortunate." His lack of surprise sent a chill through me. "Did you know about this?" "I knew it was a possibility. Actions have consequences, Tilly. You made your choices very publicly." "So, this is my fault? Someone is harassing me and you think I deserve it?" "I think you're experiencing the natural results of your behavior. You cheated on your husband and then broadcast your continued relationship with your affair partner. People notice these things." "Continued relationship? We're friends, Caleb. We danced at a club. That's not a crime." "No, it's not, but it's also not the behavior of someone who's sorry for what they did." I wanted to argue, but something in his tone stopped me. There was a finality to it, a sense that he'd already made up his mind about everything. "Where do we go from here?" I asked quietly. "I've filed for divorce," he said, still not looking at me. "You'll be served with papers tomorrow." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Tomorrow? Caleb, we haven't even tried counseling. We haven't tried anything." "What would be the point? You've made it clear that you're not sorry for what you did. You're only sorry you got caught. And even then, you're not sorry enough to stop seeing him." "I'm not seeing him. We're just friends." Finally, he looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes that made my blood run cold. "Tilly, I have 3 weeks' worth of text messages between you and Theo. I have photos of you together from 4 different occasions since your confession. I have social media posts where you're clearly planning to meet up with him. Don't insult my intelligence by calling it friendship." My phone felt heavy in my pocket. How did he have my text messages? "You've been spying on me. I've been documenting the dissolution of our marriage. There's a difference." That night, I called Lydia, desperate for someone to understand my side of the story. "He's been reading my text messages, Lydia. He's been following me, taking photos, building some kind of case against me. This isn't grief. This is revenge." "Oh, honey. Are you sure? Maybe he's just trying to understand what happened." "For 3 weeks. No, this is calculated. He's trying to destroy me. What did the divorce papers say? I haven't been served yet. That happens tomorrow, apparently. But Lydia, I'm scared. If he's been this thorough about documenting everything, what else does he have? There was a long pause. Tilly, can I ask you something? Are you still talking to Theo? The question felt like a betrayal. We're friends. We text sometimes. What's wrong with that? Nothing, I guess. It might look bad, like you're not really sorry about what happened. I am sorry, but I'm not going to cut off every friendship I have because Caleb can't handle the truth. Is that what this is? A friendship? I didn't answer because I wasn't sure I could lie to my sister the way I was lying to myself. The divorce papers arrived at my office the next day, delivered by a courier who asked me to sign for them in front of half my department. I felt every eye in the room watching as I scrawled my name on the receipt, my hands shaking with humiliation and rage. The papers themselves were devastating in their thoroughness. Caleb was seeking a dissolution of marriage based on adultery, with detailed evidence attached. Photos, text message screenshots, social media posts, witness statements. It was like reading the prosecution's case against my own life. But the worst part was the custody arrangement he was proposing for our 8-year-old daughter, Marta. He wanted primary custody, with me getting supervised visitation until I could demonstrate stable and appropriate behavior. I called him immediately, not caring who overheard. Supervised visitation? Are you insane? She's my daughter, Caleb. She's our daughter, and she deserves a stable environment. I am stable. I made one mistake. One mistake that you've continued to make for a month. One mistake that you've broadcast to the entire world. One mistake that's now affecting your employment and our daughter's school environment. What do you mean, her school environment? There was a pause. Some of the parents have seen the photos, Tilly. Marta's been asking questions about why Mommy and Daddy are sleeping in different rooms, why people whisper when she walks by. The guilt hit me like a tsunami. I'd been so focused on my own narrative, my own vindication, that I hadn't considered how this might affect Marta. She was just a little girl caught in the middle of her parents' war. This is exactly why we need to work things out, I said desperately. For her sake. We can go to counseling. We can figure this out. No, Tilly, we can't, because you're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you got caught, and you're sorry there are consequences, but you're not sorry for the actual betrayal. And until you are, there's nothing to work out. That evening, I drove to Ruth's house for what I thought would be a family dinner. Caleb's mother had invited me over, saying we needed to talk about the situation. I hoped she might be an ally, someone who could help me make Caleb see reason. I was wrong. Ruth answered the door with a cold expression I'd never seen before. Tilly, come in. The living room felt like a tribunal. Ruth sat in her favorite armchair, Caleb on the couch with a manila folder in his lap, and Lydia perched uncomfortably on the edge of a side chair. Even Marta was there, playing quietly in the corner with her dolls. I asked everyone here because I think it's time we all understood what's been happening, Ruth began. Caleb has shown me the evidence of your activities. I wanted to give you a chance to explain yourself. I looked around the room, feeling like a defendant in a courtroom. There's nothing to explain that I haven't already explained. I made a mistake, I told the truth about it, and now Caleb is trying to punish me for being honest. Honest? Ruth's voice was sharp. You call this honest? She opened a photo album on her coffee table. Inside were printouts of my social media posts from the past month, arranged chronologically like a timeline of evidence. Me laughing with Theo, me posting cryptic quotes about living authentically, me at clubs and parties while Caleb was home alone with our daughter. This was posted 2 days ago, Ruth said, pointing to a photo of me and Theo at a coffee shop. The caption says, "Grateful for friends who see the real me." Is this what honesty looks like to you? I felt my face burn with shame, but I forced myself to stay defiant. I'm allowed to have friends, Ruth. I'm allowed to live my life. While you're married to my son, While you're supposed to be working on your marriage? We're getting divorced. Caleb made that decision without even trying to save our marriage. So yes, I'm moving on with my life. You moved on before you were divorced, Lydia said quietly. You moved on before you were even separated. The betrayal in my sister's voice cut deeper than anything else. I'd expected Ruth to side with Caleb, but Lydia was supposed to be on my side. I thought you understood, I said to her. I thought you supported me. I support you, Tilly, but I can't support what you're doing. You're hurting people, Caleb, Marta, yourself, and you're acting like you're the victim in all of this. I am a victim. I'm being stalked and harassed, and you're being held accountable, Ruth interrupted. There's a difference. From the corner, Marta's small voice cut through the tension. Mummy, why is everyone mad at you? The room fell silent. I looked at my daughter, my beautiful, innocent daughter, and saw confusion and fear in her eyes. She didn't understand why her world was falling apart, why her parents were fighting, why her grandmother was angry with her mother. Nobody's mad, sweetheart, I said, moving toward her. We're just talking. But Marta pulled away from me and ran to Caleb. Daddy, I want to go home. The rejection felt like a knife in my chest. My own daughter was choosing her father over me, and I couldn't blame her. In her 8-year-old mind, Daddy was the stable one, the one who tucked her in every night, the one who wasn't causing all this drama. Maybe that's best, Ruth said coolly. Caleb, why don't you take Marta home? Tilly and I need to have a conversation. After they left, Ruth turned to me with eyes like ice. I've known you for 10 years, Tilly. I watched you marry my son. I held your hand when Marta was born. I considered you a daughter. But what you've done to my family is unforgivable. Ruth, please. No, you don't get to speak right now. You get to listen. She leaned forward, her voice low and deadly. You cheated on your husband. You lied to your child. You embarrassed your family in front of the entire community. And instead of showing remorse, instead of trying to make amends, you've doubled down on your selfishness. I told him the truth. 3 weeks too late, and only because you knew he already knew. That's not honesty, Tilly. That's damage control. Lydia shifted uncomfortably. Maybe we should all calm down. No, Ruth continued. She needs to hear this. Caleb is the best man I know. He's kind, loyal, hard-working, and devoted to his family. And you threw that away for what? For some smooth-talking party promoter who disappears the moment things get complicated. The words hit home because they were true. I hadn't heard from Theo in 3 days, not since the photos started circulating at work. When I'd texted him about the divorce papers, he'd responded with a generic, "Sorry you're going through this," and nothing else. You want to know what honesty looks like? Ruth stood up and walked to a drawer, pulling out a thick envelope. This is every piece of evidence Caleb has collected, every photo, every text message, every social media post. He didn't want to show me, but I insisted. Do you want to see what your friendship with Theo really looks like to the rest of the world? She dumped the contents on the coffee table. Photos of me and Theo at various locations, text message screenshots where I complained about Caleb and flirted shamelessly. Social media posts that painted me as the victim of an emotionally distant husband. Reading my own words, seeing my own actions laid out like evidence in a criminal trial, I felt a wave of nausea. This wasn't how I remembered things happening. In my memory, I was the wronged party, the brave truth-teller, the woman fighting for her right to happiness. But the evidence told a different story. It showed a woman who had betrayed her husband, lied to her family, and then played the victim when faced with consequences. This is who you've become, Tilly, Ruth said quietly. And until you can admit that, until you can take real responsibility for what you've done, you're not welcome in this family. I left Ruth's house in tears, my hands shaking as I drove home to an empty apartment. Caleb had taken Marta to his mother's for the night, leaving me alone with the wreckage of my life. The next few days passed in a blur of humiliation and isolation. At work, I was effectively invisible. People avoided eye contact, conversation stopped when I approached, and my usual lunch group had mysteriously reorganized without me. Nate, who had been my closest ally, now treated me with polite distance. "Hey, Nate," I said, approaching his desk. "Want to grab lunch?" "Actually, I'm swamped today. Rain check?" But I could see his calendar on his computer screen. He had nothing scheduled for the next 2 hours. "Come on, we always have lunch on Fridays." He looked uncomfortable. "Look, Tilly, I think you're great, but things are kind of weird right now. Maybe we should keep things professional for a while." "Professional? We've been friends for 3 years." "I know, and I'm sorry, but Janet pulled me aside yesterday and asked about our relationship. Apparently, some people think I'm involved in your situation. I can't afford to have my reputation questioned." The abandonment felt like a physical blow. "So you're just going to throw away our friendship because of office gossip?" "It's not gossip when there are photos, Tilly. It's documentation." That afternoon, I received a text from Lydia. "Can we meet for coffee? We need to talk." I found her at our usual spot, a small cafe near her school. She looked tired and stressed, and I realized this situation was affecting her too. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "Terribly. Everyone's treating me like I'm toxic. Even my friends at work won't talk to me." "Maybe that's because you haven't really acknowledged what you did wrong." I stared at her. "Not you too. Tilly, I love you. You're my sister, and I'll always love you, but I can't pretend that what you're doing is okay." "What am I doing? I made a mistake. I told the truth about it, and now I'm trying to move on with my life." "You're not moving on. You're doubling down. You're still seeing Theo. You're still posting photos that make you look like you're celebrating your affair, and you're still blaming Caleb for everything." "I'm not celebrating anything. I'm just refusing to hide in shame." "There's a difference between hiding in shame and showing appropriate remorse. You hurt people, Tilly. You hurt Caleb. You hurt Marta. You hurt your family. And instead of trying to make amends, you're acting like you're the victim." I felt tears welling up in my eyes. So what am I supposed to do? Crawl on my hands and knees and beg forgiveness from someone who won't even try to save our marriage? Maybe start by actually being sorry. Not sorry you got caught, not sorry there are consequences, but sorry for the pain you caused. "I am sorry." "Are you?" "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're more concerned with being right than with being sorry." That evening, I tried calling Theo. I needed someone who understood my side, someone who didn't think I was a monster for making a human mistake. His phone went straight to voicemail. I tried again an hour later with the same result. Finally, I sent a text. "Hey, are you okay? Haven't heard from you in a few days." His response came an hour later. "Hey, I think we should probably cool it for a while. This situation is getting pretty intense, and I don't want to make things worse for you." I stared at the message, feeling the last of my support system crumble away. Even Theo, the man I'd risked everything for, was abandoning me when things got difficult. "So that's it," I typed back. "You're just going to disappear when I need a friend." "Tilly, you're a great person, but you're married. This whole thing has gotten way too complicated for me. I think you need to focus on your family." The hypocrisy was stunning. He'd been perfectly happy to complicate things when it meant getting me into bed, but now that there were consequences, he was running for the hills. I threw my phone across the room and collapsed on the couch, sobbing. How had everything gone so wrong so quickly? A month ago, I'd felt justified and vindicated. Now I was alone, isolated, and facing the destruction of everything I'd built. The next morning brought another devastating blow. I was getting ready for work when my phone buzzed with a notification from the courthouse app. Caleb had filed additional paperwork, a motion for temporary custody and support, with an attached financial affidavit that laid out every detail of our shared assets and debts. But worse than the legal documents was the attached evidence. Someone had been documenting my activities with forensic precision. Photos of me at restaurants with Theo, receipts from hotels, credit card statements showing purchases of lingerie and expensive dinners. Looking at the evidence, I realized how calculated my behavior had appeared. The hotel receipts were from afternoons when I'd told Caleb I was working late. The restaurant bills were from dates I'd claimed were work functions. The lingerie purchases were from the week before my confession. I'd been building a case against myself without even realizing it. My phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Mrs. Carslake, this is David Chen from Morrison, Chen and Associates. I'm calling to schedule a deposition regarding your divorce proceedings." "A deposition? I don't understand." "Your husband's attorney has requested a formal deposition as part of the discovery process. We'll need you to answer questions under oath about the timeline of your relationship with Mr. Mendez and any other relevant matters." "Under oath?" "Yes, ma'am. Lying during a deposition is perjury, which is a felony. I'd strongly recommend you obtain legal representation before we proceed." After hanging up, I sat in my car in the office parking lot, trying to process what was happening. Caleb wasn't just divorcing me, he was building a legal case that could destroy me completely. I called the only lawyer I knew, a family friend named Patricia Williams, who had handled my grandmother's estate. "Tilly, honey, I have to be honest with you. This is not good. Your husband has documented everything with the thoroughness of a forensic accountant. The evidence suggests a pattern of deception that goes back months before the actual affair." "Pattern of deception?" I told him the truth. 3 weeks after the fact, and only after he'd already gathered evidence. From a legal standpoint, that looks like damage control, not honesty. "So what do I do?" "You prepare for the possibility that you're going to lose everything. Primary custody, the house, potentially even spousal support. Adultery is still grounds for fault divorce in this state, and your husband has documented your affair with the precision of a criminal prosecutor." "But I was honest with him. I could have hidden it forever." "Tilly, he has photos of you with this man from before your marriage was in trouble. He has text messages where you complain about your husband to your affair partner. He has credit card receipts that suggest you were planning this relationship for months. This doesn't look like a moment of weakness. It looks like a calculated affair." The words hit me like a sledgehammer. "That's not what happened." "It doesn't matter what happened. It matters what you can prove. And right now, all the evidence supports your husband's version of events." That night, I sat alone in my apartment, surrounded by the remnants of my life. Caleb had taken most of his belongings, leaving behind only the furniture and a few personal items. Even the photos of our family had been removed from their frames. I tried to call Marta, but Caleb answered. "She's doing homework," he said. "Maybe you can talk to her tomorrow." "She's my daughter, Caleb. I have a right to speak to her." "You have the rights outlined in the temporary custody order. Supervised visitation on weekends, with phone calls at my discretion." "At your discretion? She's 8 years old, not a prisoner." "She's a little girl who's been traumatized by her mother's choices. Until you can demonstrate that you're putting her welfare above your own desires, my discretion is all you get." The line went dead, leaving me alone with the terrible realization that I had lost everything: my marriage, my daughter, my friends, my reputation, and I had no one to blame but myself. The courthouse steps felt like a stage, and I was the unwilling star of a performance I'd never auditioned for. It was a crisp Tuesday morning in November when the final act of my marriage played out in front of anyone who cared to watch. I'd arrived early, hoping to catch Caleb before the hearing and make one last attempt at reconciliation. Instead, I found myself facing a small crowd of familiar faces: Ruth, Lydia, several co-workers, and even some neighbors from our apartment building. Caleb emerged from a black sedan with 2 men in expensive suits. His legal team looked like they were prepared for a criminal trial, not a divorce proceeding. He saw me waiting on the steps and approached with the same calm demeanor that had haunted me for weeks. "Tilly." "Caleb, please. Before we go in there, can we just talk? Really talk?" "We're past talking. You had 3 weeks to talk before you confessed, and another month to talk after. You chose this path." I chose honesty. I chose to tell you the truth when I could have hidden it forever. One of his lawyers, a sharp-faced woman in her 50s, stepped forward. Mrs. Carslake, I'd advise you not to discuss the case without your attorney present. I'm not discussing the case, I'm talking to my husband. Soon-to-be ex-husband, Caleb corrected. And Jennifer is right. Everything you say now is on the record. I looked around at the gathered crowd, realizing that this moment was being witnessed by everyone who mattered in my life. My sister looked sympathetic but distant. Ruth's face was stone cold. My co-workers whispered among themselves, no doubt gathering material for office gossip. Is this what you wanted? I asked Caleb. To humiliate me in front of everyone we know. I wanted you to face the consequences of your actions. The humiliation is your own doing. The courthouse doors opened, and a bailiff announced that our case was being called. As we walked up the steps, I caught sight of Theo across the street, partially hidden behind a parked car. He was watching the proceedings like a spectator at a car accident, close enough to see, but far enough to avoid involvement. Our eyes met for a moment, and I saw something in his expression that made my stomach drop. Relief. He was relieved that he wasn't the one facing consequences, that he'd managed to escape the wreckage of my life unscathed. Inside the courtroom, the reality of my situation became clear. Caleb's legal team had prepared a presentation that laid out my affair with the precision of a criminal case. They had a timeline that stretched back 6 months, showing a pattern of behavior that I'd never recognized in myself. Your Honor, Jennifer began, the evidence shows that Mrs. Carslake engaged in a calculated extramarital affair that involved deliberate deception, financial fraud, and emotional abuse of the minor child. Financial fraud? I looked at my own lawyer, Patricia, who seemed as surprised as I was. The defendant used marital funds to finance her affair, including hotel rooms, expensive dinners, and gifts for her paramour. She lied to her husband about her whereabouts on numerous occasions, claiming to be working late or attending company functions while actually engaging in romantic encounters. They had receipts for everything: hotel bills I'd forgotten about, restaurant charges I'd rationalized as work expenses, even a piece of jewelry I'd bought for Theo that I'd charged to our joint credit card. Furthermore, Jennifer continued, Mrs. Carslake exposed the minor child to her affair partner on multiple occasions, introducing him as a friend from work and bringing him to family-oriented events where the child was present. I remembered now, the company picnic where I'd introduced Theo to Marta, the school carnival where he'd helped us carry prizes to the car, the evening when he'd stopped by our apartment to drop off work documents and ended up staying for dinner. At the time, these had seemed like innocent interactions. Now, presented as evidence in a courtroom, they looked like a systematic introduction of my affair partner into my family's life. The courtroom was silent as the judge spoke. The court grants the divorce on grounds of adultery. Primary custody of the minor child goes to the plaintiff, with the defendant receiving supervised visitation. The marital home and assets are awarded to the plaintiff. Defendant bears her own legal fees. I stood, voice trembling. Your Honor, I admit my mistake. I confessed. Doesn't that matter? The judge's gaze was steady. Honesty, after being caught, doesn't erase the deception. You exposed your child to the affair, misused marital funds, and created instability requiring counseling for your daughter. I glanced at Caleb, who held my daughter close. I hadn't even known she was in counseling. As I walked out alone, past whispering crowds and recording phones, Theo approached. I'm sorry, Tilly. You're relieved, I said. You never had vows to break. He shrugged. We both made choices. For the first time, I saw the truth clearly. I had betrayed my family, lied, stolen, and played the victim. I had chosen this destruction. I watched Caleb lift Marta, her smile bright in the pink dress I'd once bought her. I had lost everything, and I deserved to lose it.